High up on Ludgate Hill, above the city of London, stands St. Paul's Cathedral. For 20 centuries, the people of London have gathered here for worship. 3 times in history, their church has been destroyed by fire. 3 times they have rebuilt it better than before. Marking the site of the most famous pulpit in England is a cross bearing the figure of St. Paul. He has looked upon many a brave scene of pageantry. To St. Paul's came King George VI and Queen Elizabeth to give thanks for their coronation, and King George V and Queen Mary for their jubilee. To St. Paul's came King Edward VII after his coronation, and Queen Victoria for her diamond jubilee. When the bands and the cheering crowds, the banners and the uniforms depart, and the pigeons take possession of the cathedral steps once more, to St. Paul's come the people of London themselves, and they bring their children to show them their own church. Later today, there is to be a thanksgiving on the steps, but before it begins, there is time for them to go inside. Today, as they pass up towards the entrance under the great columns, there is a new tale of wonder to tell about St. Paul's. 3 times a church that stood here has been burnt down, but this one passed through the greatest fire of all. It is fascinating for the child who visits St. Paul's today to see the plan of the ancient church that stood here up to the great fire of 1666. Perhaps as he gazes at the model, the glass of the showcase disappears, and he sees with the vivid imagination of a child the flames of the great fire rising again. And this was Sir Christopher Wren, the great architect who drew the plans for a new St. Paul's in the reign of King Charles II. More than once he altered his designs before they were at last accepted. He drafted a fine plan for a new London too, but it was never carried out. Even the model of St. Paul's, as Wren finally designed it, and the St. Paul's we know today are different in many details. The changes that crept in during the 35 years that it took to build. Since Wren built the cathedral, its interior has been decorated by the hands of the greatest British sculptors and artists of the last 2 centuries. Beneath the dome, the lives of some of the empire's greatest servants are commemorated. In the dome itself are paintings representing the life of St. Paul, his conversion, the preaching before Sergius, the sacrifice at Lystra, the conversion of his jailer at Philippi, the burning of the books at Ephesus, his defense before Agrippa, the preaching at Athens, and the shipwreck at Melita. Meanwhile, far below the great dome, in the crypt, the visitor may see the tomb of Wren. The cathedral builder was 90 years old when he died. "Isn't there a statue of him?" asks the child, and his father points to the inscription cut into the stone. Si monumentum requiris circumspice. If you seek his monument, look about you. Right beneath the center of the dome lies Nelson, the greatest of our admirals. The boy has seen his picture in books and conjures up a vision of the Battle of Trafalgar and Nelson's death scene in the hour of victory. And round him rest other great admirals. Jellicoe, Admiral of the Fleet in the last war. Beatty, the hero of Jutland, to whom the German Navy surrendered in 1918. The visitors pass on. A short way beyond, a blaze of colour from the royal standards of Portugal and Spain, Queen Victoria's own standard, and those of Prussia, Hanover, and Russia, recalls the great Duke of Wellington, Napoleon's conqueror, whose last march ended here in St. Paul's. Again the pictures rise. Waterloo, the Iron Duke on horseback, Scotland forever, and the fallen tyrant on his way to St. Helena. Just as Nelson's tomb is surrounded by great British sailors, so around Wellington lie Britain's famous soldiers. Here is Roberts, the hero of Kabul and Kandahar. In All Souls Chapel is the memorial to Field Marshal Kitchener. The child's parents remember his poster, which helped to raise Britain's armies in the last war. Not far away, a tablet honors an American, Pilot Officer Fisk, the first American citizen to give his life in the Battle of Britain. So Fisk and his comrades in the RAF fought in the sky of 1940 above St. Paul's. A London child doesn't need his father to tell him of the Battle of Britain. He remembers it. He remembers, too, the night of December the 29th, 1940, although he had been evacuated 30 miles from London. That night, as usual, the citizens kept their vigil on the roofs. And as usual, they heard the warning. They had seen raids before, but even they never dreamt of the fires they were to see that night. the shadow of St. Paul's in Fleet Street, newspapers were printing the news. Soon the tidings swept round the world. St. Paul's is saved. Round the cathedral lay desolation, but as the months passed, the debris was cleared. A bomb shattered the portico over the north doorway, which crashed through into the crypt, leaving a crater in the pavement. Another bomb fell through the roof of the choir, destroying part of the vaulting and the altar below. But the great building withstood the shock and was saved from burning by those who kept vigil there night after night, coming of their own free will to risk their lives for their church. When the city was crashing around them, they did not fail. So the child comes out into the light with his mother and father to join in the thanksgiving that has begun on the steps.